Chapter 2873. Because Yi Qing Luo's power had increased greatly. As Yi Qing Luo's blood packed with the Azure Dew bracelet, it would be able to expand its power and upgrade. And Old Man Song, as the artifact spirit of the Azure Dew bracelet, would also be in deep slumber, upgrading together with the Azure Dew bracelet. I'm not looking at you for a moment and you've created a huge disaster for me. Old Man Song reprimanded in shock. What a dense evil qi, what have you provoked? People from the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo quickly avoided a guard's attack. Old Man Song, do you know what kind of evil art this is? Palace of Darkness. Old Man Song had heard of the rise of the Palace of Darkness. What kind of power is it? Even if the King of Darkness came personally, he wouldn't be able to create such a dense evil qi. The attacks of the Palace of Darkness guards were obviously much more ferocious. Yi Qing Luo was unable to divert her attention as she was communicating with Old Man Song. After a few more moves, Yi Qing Luo's glower flame fan drew out a wind blade and directly cut off the nearest guard's arm. The arm fell onto the ground. The wound was bone white. There was still no trace of blood. That guard's face didn't seem to show any signs of pain. He didn't even bother about his severed arm as he attacked Yi Qing Luo once again. This is the skill of controlling corpses. Old Man Song's incredulous voice was transmitted into Yi Qing Luo's ears. Yi Qing Luo was stunned by these 3 words and couldn't react for a moment. Her shoulder was slapped hard by the guard who pounced on her. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale as she swiftly retreated a few steps. The other guards hurriedly rushed forward to attack as well. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath and suppressed the pain from the palm on her chest as she quickly executed her footwork. Because of the injury. It could also be due to exhaustion. Her petite figure turned into a red shadow as she speedily moved between the guards. They were all narrowly avoided by the palm wind that brushed past them. Lass, these things are all corpses, you can't beat these monsters. Old Man Song saw this and his tone became even more anxious. Under such dense evil qi, Old Man Song couldn't easily show himself. Not to mention that once Old Man Song appeared and helped Yi Qing Luo to block the attacks from the 5 guards, would the source of the demonic qi be able to detect Old Man Song's identity, thus exposing the matter of the Azure Dew bracelet? It was this dense demonic aura. It would cause great harm to Old Man Song. In the midst of flying and roaming, Yi Qing Luo's breathing became more and more hurried. She remained vigilant while the guards attacked. At the same time, he replied in his mind, I have also guessed it. These guards are actually puppets. Judging from the fact that these guards didn't feel pain or bleed, and that they obeyed his orders like puppets, Zhang Xian could tell that these guards didn't feel any pain or bleed. Yi Qing Luo had already guessed it. These guards were puppets, puppets without souls. Corpse controlling technique. Controlling corpses as an evil secret technique in battle. Little girl, don't waste your energy struggling. Miao Rongrong personally witnessed Yi Qing Luo being struck by a palm and couldn't stop laughing. Surrender obediently, not only will it save you energy, I will also be gentle and treat you well, gently. Nicely. What? Her laughter was filled with a cold and evil aura. It was hoarse, sharp and ear-piercing. My semi-finished products don't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Every time they leave a wound on your body, their own yin qi will invade your body from your wound. Chapter 2874. Yi Qing Luo's face sunk when she heard this. She could clearly feel the chill that was constantly eroding her chest. But she didn't expect, this chill came from the puppet's yin qi. Yi Qing Luo paused and lowered her eyes. She looked at her wound. Only to see the place where she was hit by the puppet, a very faint, unreal black qi was revolving and lingering in front of her chest. Bit by bit, it moved towards her wound, trying to drill into it. She raised her hand and pressed on her wound. This black qi didn't have the chance to erode her body. It was blocked by Old Man Song's azure dew bracelet's enchantment. However, the chill brought about by the black aura still caused her delicate body to tremble slightly. That's good, that's good. It's good to surrender, don't have to suffer, won't hurt. Your perfect body. The ruthless voice was full of complacent sneer. Miao Rongrong's eyes were glued to Yi Qing Luo's body without any concealment. As if sizing up the perfect toy that belonged to her. Under that kind of gaze for a long time. Yi Qing Luo only felt the hair on her body stand up, sticky and disgusting. It was also because Yi Qing Luo suddenly stopped. Miao Rongrong was too confident. She didn't let the 5 puppets continue to chase Yi Qing Luo. Instead, they surrounded Yi Qing Luo in a corner of the rock wall. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any escape route to choose. Looking at Yi Qing Luo, who was surrounded by the 5 puppets, looking at her pale face and holding her chest, unable to move. Miao Rongrong's bloodthirsty heart was beating fiercely. She was excited. A strange, perverted sense of excitement filled his body and mind. Luo lass, this group of monsters can't be beaten or killed. Whether it's fire or water, or even smashing this group of monsters, it can't stop this group of monsters from obeying orders, Old Man Song continued solemnly, so, we must cut off the source that controls them. Source. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes and fixed her gaze on the 5 puppets that were only 1 step away from her. These 5 puppets only needed to lift their hands slightly. He could subdue her at any time. Yi Qing Luo had grasped the mentality of the person who was manipulating in the dark. He also knew that someone as arrogant as Miao Rongrong had absolute confidence in her puppet. In Miao Rongrong's eyes, she was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It was precisely because of Miao Rongrong's arrogance that she was able to take a breather and discuss with Old Man Song how to deal with the situation. She steadied her mind and carefully stared at the black aura behind the 5 puppets that was connected to Miao Rongrong. If his guess was correct, the 5 puppets' strength had increased significantly after Miao Rongrong's appearance, and they were still improving. It was all because of the yin qi. This should be the source of the 5 puppets. As long as he cut off the connection between Miao Rongrong and the 5 puppets, she could easily take away Miao Rongrong's life. However, Miao Rongrong might be arrogant, but she was also very careful. Whenever she wanted to get close to Miao Rongrong, she would be blocked by the 5 puppets in advance and counterattacked. How could she cut off this source? She had to hurry. Chapter 2875. Thud, thud, thud. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps rang out in the tunnel. Then, 5th Elder Miao's annoyed and impatient voice rang out. I've already informed the 2 judging elders. They value that bitch Miao Yi's talent very much. They wouldn't agree to our suggestion no matter what and insisted on barging into the tunnel. 5th Elder Miao's figure turned from the front. The 2 judging elders are too difficult to deal with. I can't stop them. They'll probably be here soon. How's your competition going? He did not notice that the atmosphere in the tunnel had changed. He even walked briskly to Miao Rongrong, whose back was facing him. Miao Rongrong, you promised me that you'd definitely win the competition with that bitch Miao Yi. Don't make me bet on the wrong thing. As he spoke, he raised a hand and placed it on Miao Rongrong's shoulder. Crack. The crisp sound of bones breaking was extremely clear in the tunnel. 5th Elder Miao screamed and pulled his hand back. He wailed in pain. Miao Rongrong. You bitch, how dare you hit me? He cursed angrily and held his arm. He gritted his teeth and glared at the person in front of him. At this moment, Miao Rongrong had already turned around and looked at him. 5th Elder Miao saw clearly Miao Rongrong's pitch-black eyes that were full of black aura and had no luster at all. All his curses were stuck in his throat. His eyes kept widening. His expression of fear and shock tightened bit by bit. You're not Miao Rong Rong. Who are you? Fifth Elder Miao stammered, his voice trembling. Miao Rong Rong's pitch-black eyes glanced at Fifth Elder Miao indifferently. You're so inferior. You're not even qualified to be a test subject. Get lost. Don't get in the way. The hoarse and sharp voice was like a saw that rubbed against Fifth Elder Miao's eardrums. Fifth Elder Miao was a hot-tempered person. After being humiliated by Miao Rong Rong, his face turned red and livid. His face immediately turned red and ashen, and he slapped Miao Rong Rong's face. You overestimate yourself. Miao Rong Rong sneered. Her pitch-black eyes were filled with cold killing intent. At the same time Fifth Elder Miao appeared. When Yiqing Luo heard Fifth Elder Miao's voice, her eyes instantly lit up. Her charming eyes flickered slightly as she stared at the 5 puppets surrounding her stiffly because they didn't have any orders. This is the chance. Old Man Song immediately said. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. She was truly blessed by the heavens. Just a moment ago, she said that she couldn't find an opportunity to cut off the source. At this moment, the opportunity presented itself to him. With Fifth Elder Miao as bait, Miao Rong Rong's attention was attracted. Just give her a few breaths of time. She would definitely be able to cut off the source of Miao Rong Rong's control over the puppet. As for Fifth Elder Miao, he lived up to everyone's expectations and displayed his extremely brainless skills. Miao Rong Rong turned around and looked at Fifth Elder Miao. Now. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as a few wisps of murderous intent flashed past her charming eyes. All of a sudden, her figure swayed. His speed was so fast that not even his afterimage could be seen. Then, a sharp, hoarse scream sounded from the tunnel. Break! Yiqing Luo clenched her glower flame fan tightly as her pink lips spat out this word. The glower flame fan was like a ball of burning flame. Her fingertip flicked. Chapter 2876. Swish! That wave of black chi was suddenly slashed into 2, giving off an extremely ear-piercing explosive sound. Miao Rong Rong was stunned, until a burst of powerful and oppressive profound energy came right at her face. She then reacted. She turned her head, her eyes filled with malice as she looked at that young lady who was emitting a bewitching red glow, under the sky full of black chi, dazzling. She wanted to retreat. But her body knocked onto Fifth Elder Miao, who was also in a daze. Bam! An extremely powerful profound energy heavily crashed onto Miao Rong Rong. Along with Fifth Elder Miao, who was behind, under the powerful force, flew out, crashing heavily onto the rock wall. Dong dong dong. Both of their bodies fell onto the ground, rolling several rounds. Ah! Pain! Pain! I'm dying of pain. Ouch! Fifth Elder Miao cried out miserably, drawing in a breath of cold air, flopping on the ground. Miao Rong Rong, who was by the side, was stiff, like a puppet controlled by Maitreya, swaying as it stood up. A blood-stained jade-green robe hung loosely by the side of her body. Damn toy! How dare you hurt my toy! A hoarse ear-piercing voice, with a little hazy, was spat out from Miao Rong Rong's mouth. Miao Rong Rong's body was suspended in mid-air, swaying as it floated towards Yiqing Luo's direction. His body was stiff, his eyes were dark, and his face was expressionless. No matter how one looked, it looked like a puppet without a soul. How could it be so fast? How could it possibly escape from my semi-finished product's encirclement? Miao Rong Rong kept muttering to herself. Hiss hiss. Just at the instant when Miao Rong Rong floated over. The black chi which had been severed, frantically swam. It rubbed against the air, giving out a scalp-numbing sound. Unceasingly, it wanted to surge towards Miao Rong Rong. How would Yiqing Luo allow these yin chi to return back to Miao Rongrong. She narrowed her eyes, as the glower flame fan in her hands quickly opened. One after another, wind blades flew toward the ball of yin energy. Yiqing Luo had listened to Old Man Tsang's suggestion to create the wind blades and had gathered the power of the Azure Dew Bracelet and the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. What's more, each of Yiqing Luo's wind blades were precisely aimed at the most sensitive part of the yin chi's movement. In just a moment, the countless strands of yin chi had already scattered into a ball. Boom! At this moment, Miao Rongrong, who was originally floating in the air, fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. The black aura around her body dissipated in an instant. The entire tunnel returned to a deathly silence. The surrounding aura also gradually returned to calmness. Old Man Tsang carefully sensed the surroundings. After confirming that there was no response from the evil aura, he said, "It's gone, the evil aura has disappeared." Yiqing Luo heaved a long sigh of relief. She pressed her chest and glanced sideways at the 5 puppets who were still standing at the same spot, stiff and motionless, like a stone statue. Her eyes deepened. Without the supply of yin chi, these puppets have lost the ability to move. This palace of gloom, creating these puppets, what on earth are they trying to do? Just as she was deep in thought, wanting to discuss this question with Old Man Tsang. From the other end of the tunnel, a few impatient voices were heard. Eldest young Miss Miao had passed through all the checkpoints yesterday. Even the sacred maiden had already acknowledged eldest young Miss Miao. What more are you trying to do? Chapter 2877. At the other end of the tunnel, 2 white figures hurriedly walked over. The 2 of them were dressed in Miao tribe's elders' attire. This attire was different from 5th Elder Miao's. Both of their chests were embroidered with a big judge word using silk thread. Weren't these 2 the Miao tribe's judging elders? When the 2 of them turned the corner, they saw the scene in front of them. All the hurried curses stopped at the side of their mouths. Left judge elder stood in a daze amidst the flying gravel. A young lady dressed in a fiery red dress, like a fairy. And by her feet was a young lady dressed in a jade green robe. What was going on? Wasn't it said that it was a competition? Where was eldest young Miss Miao? Where were the other elders? Why did it look like a fierce battle had just happened? Right judge elder's vision was quickly attracted by those few tall and sturdy puppets at the corner. Right judge elder cried out in shock, "This tunnel, how could someone who isn't from the same clan enter?" The 2 judging elders exchanged glances and immediately walked towards the direction of those unmoving puppets. Before they even got close, they heard the young lady warning them, "If you don't want to die, don't touch those puppets." The 2 judging elders stopped in their tracks. The young lady's tone was very calm. Moreover, no matter how one listened to his words, they felt extremely arrogant. This made the 2 judging elders more or less unhappy. But very quickly, their attention was attracted by Yiqing Luo's last 2 words. Puppets. What puppets? Left judge elder turned his head and looked at the young lady who was wiping the glower flame fan. Yesterday, where did you place the guards who were dealt with by the secluded palace's 2nd palace lord? The question that left judge elder wanted to ask was once again stuck in his throat. He moved his mouth, looked at the young lady's calm face. After a long while, he still swallowed his words, replied, word by word squeezed out from between his teeth, thrown to the Miao tribe's cremation site. Those Miao tribe guards who carried the secluded palace's guards, are they still alive today? Yiqing Luo naturally heard the displeasure in the judging elder's tone. But she had no intention to chat with them. The most important thing was to ask what he wanted to know first. Miss Yi, what do you mean? Judge Suo frowned. This is the Miao tribe's private tunnel. Outsiders are not allowed to step into this place. Miss Yi. Why are you here? Also, where's Miss Miao? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Yi and the other 3 elders have already left the underground tunnel. As for the reason why I'm here, will tell you later. She explained casually and continued, the Meow tribe might not be peaceful in the near future. Elders, please hurry and investigate if the Meow tribe guards who carried the guards from the Palace of Darkness are all right. As for the 5 puppets here, use your special Meow tribe barrier to seal them. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's unperturbed manner, as she impolitely ordered one thing after another, the corners of the 2 judges' mouths twitched. Although Yi Qing Luo was able to treat the Meow tribe as her own force and they were extremely happy to do so. But, Yi Qing Luo's performance, had she totally treated herself as a Meow clansman? Instruct these high-ranking elders of the Meow tribe. Chapter 2878. The 2 judging elders looked at each other in dismay as they stared at Yi Qing Luo in unison. There was a kind of strong request for Yi Qing Luo to give a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, they would absolutely not listen to her orders. Yi Qing Luo. These 2 elders. Speaking of which, compared to those Grand Elder and Second Elder who were concerned about the Meow tribe, they were more considerate of the Meow tribe. Although these 2 elders were because of Miao Yi's exceptional innate talent. That was why their attitude towards Miao Yi had changed. But it was because they were willing to bring true development to the Meow tribe and accepted Miao Yi's actions. This made Yi Qing Luo feel more assured towards them. Was the so-called pure Meow tribe bloodline really that important? Was this pure Meow tribe bloodline more important than moral integrity, true innate talent and ability? No. People who cared about the so-called bloodline. In actual fact, they weren't really thinking for the Meow tribe, but to cover their own selfishness with a dignified excuse. They were just afraid that their current status and identity would be affected because of this. Yi Qing Luo's brows became gentler as her lips curled into a faint smile, squinting her eyes as she teased them. If there's no accident, Yi should have gone to the land of the Gu King with the other 3 elders, to start the inheritance ceremony. She paused as she glanced sideways at the 2 judging elders. Are you sure you want to waste time here and miss the inheritance ceremony? The 2 judging elders' eyes suddenly widened. The inheritance ceremony is about to start. The left judging elder swallowed his saliva in disbelief. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't say a word. The right judging elder was also stunned as he couldn't believe it. But looking at Yi Qing Luo's crafty smile and her serious look, they were even more suspicious. But regarding the inheritance ceremony, they had no choice but to believe it. After all, none of them were willing to miss the Gu King's recognition inheritance ceremony, which only happened once every 50 years. They could still find out more about the underground tunnel later on. No matter if what Yi Qing Luo said was true or not. They had to go to the land of the Gu King first. With this thought in mind, the 2 judging elders turned around and left. Don't you 2 believe this demonist nonsense? It hurts, it hurts. Suddenly, a familiar cry of pain came from somewhere not far away. The 2 judging elders were stunned and looked towards the source of the voice. 5th Elder Miao was rolling on the ground, crying out in pain. 5th Elder Miao fell to the ground in a sorry state. His elder robes were stained with blood. The judging elders frowned upon seeing this. Although he didn't like 5th Elder Miao, he still walked over for the sake of their kinship. Elders Hua squatted down, wanting to help 5th Elder Miao up. 5th Elder Miao grabbed Elders Hua's outstretched hand with one of his hands. Sticky blood-stained Elders Hua's hands and body. Elders Hua frowned even more. He was about to push 5th Elder Miao away, but 5th Elder Miao grabbed him even tighter. You don't believe that witch. She wants to destroy our Miao tribe. She wants to destroy us. The elder who was the judge was about to push him away when he stopped. He frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" Chapter 2879. Fifth elder Miao's words made the two elders' expressions sunk instantly. The right elder's vision immediately shot towards Yiqing Luo. Whereas the young lady who was being stared at had a harmless look, just like a thorn, allowing them to size her up. Not at all bothered by what fifth elder Miao said. Fifth elder Miao saw the two elders' gazes, as they had already turned towards Yiqing Luo. In order to make the elders believe his own words, Fifth elder Miao pressed hard on his chest, so painful that his face turned pale, as he frowned tightly, putting on a pained look. She's just an outsider. I've been in the Miao tribe for so many years, surely I wouldn't take the Miao tribe's safety as a joke. After I informed you that eldest young Miss Miao was going to take part in the last round of competition, I rushed back. The minute I returned, I saw her. She instructed those 5 people to forcefully suppress eldest young Miss Miao and the other 3 elders, as they walked over there. By the time they returned, eldest young Miss Miao and the elders had already disappeared. I wanted to chase after them, but they had completely blocked that tunnel, completely. Fifth elder Miao said it as though it was the truth. He even stared at Yiqing Luo with extreme hatred. He clenched his teeth, as he continued to pain, "If you don't believe me, then look over there." Fifth elder Miao pointed to the ground, at Miao Rongrong who was lying in the rubble, facing the ground. The person lying there is Miao Rongrong. She killed Miao Rongrong, and even wanted to kill me, to cover up her own crimes. The left elder's white brows creased tightly, as he stared at fifth elder Miao, for a long time. Following that, he exchanged glances with the right elder. The right elder stood up, as he walked towards the young lady dressed in jade green dress, who was lying on the ground. Before he got near, he heard that young lady's chilly voice, "I advise you, don't touch that woman. If anything happens, I won't be a busybody." The right elder's footsteps halted, as he stared at the young lady, his eyes filled with doubt. "Did you see that? She's feeling guilty. She's still trying to scare us, not daring to let you investigate Miao Rongrong's corpse." Fifth elder Miao seemed as though he had caught something that could convict him, as he roared agitatedly. This roar shook his internal organs, as he felt a wave of intense pain. He coughed violently. However, he was in a good mood. The right judge elder did not believe fifth elder Miao's words. But that didn't mean that he would believe Yiqing Luo. That person on the ground, he had to be investigated. However, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't look like she was joking or was trying to scare people. The elder on the right pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he swept his sleeve. Then, he raised his hand, bit his finger, and dripped a drop of blood. A black parasite the size of a fingernail darted in Miao Rongrong's direction. The goo worm drilled into Miao Rongrong's body. Not long after, Miao Rongrong was lying motionless on the ground. Suddenly, he staggered, and stood up. "Stand straight, don't move," the elder on the right ordered. That jade-green figure was still desperately swaying. It seemed to be very difficult to maintain balance. His footsteps were light as he stepped on the ground randomly. Slowly, he steadied himself. His head, which was hanging low, slowly lifted up. A familiar yet ferocious face appeared from the messy black hair. "High to the right." A calm voice was heard from the side. The elder on the right subconsciously moved a step towards the right. Swoosh. Chapter 2880. Right judge elder only felt a gust of chilly air brushing past his cheek. Bam! In the tunnel, there was a tremor. The ground exploded and a huge deep pit appeared. Dust billowed and the remaining might was still shocking the air. Right judge elder was so shocked by this scene that his back was drenched in sweat. If that voice hadn't reminded him earlier. If he hadn't shifted his feet to the right in time. This burst of energy would directly hit him. The one who turned into a deep pit would be his body. The pupils of the elder on the right constricted. What's going on? Left judge elder swiftly put down fifth elder meow and rushed towards right judge elder. It's meow rong rong, her eyes. Right judge elder had a lingering fear as he stared at meow rong rong, who was standing still. What's wrong with her eyes? Left judge elder held him up. It's black. Completely black, from her eyes, a burst of energy. Right judge elder couldn't believe it. If he didn't listen to Yi Qing Luo's words and went to check on Miao Rongrong, what would be the consequences? He suddenly remembered the calm voice that warned him just now. Wasn't that Yi Qing Luo's voice? Right judge elder's heart tightened as he stared intently at Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, what on earth is going on? Then you have to ask, the one whom the few elders have been pining for, the one who has the pure Miao bloodline, Miao Rongrong. Yi Qing Luo shot a glance at Miao Rongrong, who was controlled by the goo worm, as she scoffed. She's not dead. Right judge elder, because of the episode earlier, his scales had gradually tilted towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled meaningfully. Not dead, but she's not far from death. Not far from death. Left judge elder's brows creased tightly as he stared at Miao Rongrong's gaze, as it flickered. Miao Rongrong. After all, she was the sacred maiden candidate whom they had the highest hopes for. Since young, it was because of Miao Rongrong's innate talent and Miao Yixiong's special nurturing of Miao Rongrong. Towards Miao Rongrong, they were rather fond of her. After so many years, their feelings were right there. Now looking at Miao Rongrong's miserable ending, he felt a little sad in his heart. Elders of the judging panel, do you really believe the words of that demoness? This was all part of her plan. Don't fall for it. When fifth elder Miao saw that the judging elders didn't take his words to heart, his hatred towards Yi Qing Luo grew even deeper. He clenched his fists tightly and continued to smear the name without holding back. If we allow this demoness to do as she pleases in the Miao tribe will soon be invaded by the power behind this demoness. They had lived together in the Miao tribe for decades. Fifth elder Miao also knew the personalities of the two judges. He also knew how devoted they were to the Miao tribe. He immediately described the future of the Miao tribe in an extremely serious manner, trying to create a sense of crisis in the judging elders. But unexpectedly, a girl's lazy voice sounded beside his ear. Oh. The power behind it. Fifth elder Miao felt that the voice was like a stream of ice-cold water flowing into his body. His entire body was trembling. However, there was no chance for him to retreat now. Chapter 2881. The eyebrows of the two judges furrowed into wrinkles. They looked at fifth elder Miao with a complicated gaze. Then they looked at Yi Qing Luo with a complicated gaze. To tell the truth, these two people, although one was from the same clan, but from fifth elder Miao's usual conduct and character, they only believed 30% of fifth elder Miao's words. As for Yi Qing Luo, although she was an outsider, but through yesterday, her attitude towards Miao Yi and the way she spoke and did things, most of it could tell her character. As compared to fifth elder Miao, they were more inclined towards Yi Qing Luo. However, fifth elder Miao didn't see through this point. Seeing the two judging elders not speaking for a long time, thinking that they were shaken by his words, he struck while the iron was hot. This demoness schemed against Miao Yi and the Miao tribe. It must be to expand the power behind her. The judging elder was about to open his mouth, but he heard a pft sound, interrupting the judging elder's words. Interrupting fifth elder Miao's words. 3 pairs of eyes followed the sound, looking towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms, as she tilted her head lazily, smiling extremely peacefully. Fifth elder Miao's meaning is, the imperial palace is interested in the Miao tribe. Her voice was very soft. with a trace of undetectable ridicule. When the two words, Imperial Palace, came out from Yi Qing Luo's mouth, Fifth Elder Miao's face, swish, turned pale. The judging elder immediately reacted, as the gaze he shot at Fifth Elder Miao had a subtle change. Right. Yi Qing Luo's backing was not only the so-called the World Mercenary Group, the so-called Heavenly Academy. There was also a powerful, invincible backing, the Overlord. What she represented was the Imperial Palace's power. If the Imperial Palace wanted to invade the Miao tribe, was there a need to scheme? Was there a need to find helpers? No. There was no need. If she wanted the Miao tribe, or even the northern continent, as long as Dmo Xian took action, nothing was impossible. Fifth Elder Miao's face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and it also proved that what he had just said was all nonsense. No. It's not like that. You're a witch. You're shameless. Elder Miao Wu panicked when she saw the judging elders looking at her with contempt. Fifth Elder Miao knew this very well. From the very beginning, he had been opposing Miao Yi. His relationship with Yi Qing Luo wasn't pleasant at all. Once Miao Yi became the Holy Maiden, there was a possibility that Miao Yi would listen to Yi Qing Luo's suggestion and take action on him. So, things had come to this. He could only choose to erase the Dark Knight. As long as Yi Qing Luo fell from power, that useless Miao Yi wouldn't be able to stir up any waves. In the end, they would only end up as pawns in the hands of their elders. However, he had neglected one thing. Not only was Yi Qing Luo extremely arrogant and mischievous because of her powerful ability. Behind her was His Excellency the Emperor, the first palace of Nirvana realm, the Imperial Palace. I'm shameless. How am I shameless? When Yi Qing Luo heard what he said, she felt that it was ridiculous as she squinted her eyes and smirked. You scoundrel who uses beauty to serve others. You only know how to use His Excellency the Overlord's power to commit crimes. If His Excellency the Overlord isn't behind you, backing you up, who do you think you are? Fifth Elder Miao was agitated by Yi Qing Luo's contemptuous smile as his eyes turned red instantly as he clenched his teeth and cursed. Chapter 2882. Fifth Elder Miao was so infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's shameless words that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Qing Luo gave an evil smile as she tilted her head and her eyes curved, moreover speaking, so what if I'm relying on my future husband's power? After all, I'm the future mistress of the Imperial Palace. Fifth Elder Miao was so angry that he was trembling. He had not expected this at all. A lady, an unmarried lady. How could she be so shameless to say such indecent words? Unfortunately, he had no way to rebuke her. I advise you to do as I say as soon as possible. After he becomes the sacred maiden, I will not stay any longer. If anything happens to the Miao tribe later on, I will not be responsible. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to continue talking nonsense with Fifth Elder Miao as she turned around to look at the two judging elders. After the two judging elders had gone through a series of events, in addition to Fifth Elder Miao's farce, they had already believed Yi Qing Luo without a doubt. After all, Yi Qing Luo was the Overlord's woman. If Yi Qing Luo wanted to destroy the Miao tribe, she didn't need to go through so much trouble. They also believed that the friendship between Yi Qing Luo and Miao Yi was real. Bring Fifth Elder Miao out first. I'll seal these few people. Right judging elder said. Left judging elder had no objections as he bent down to pick up the injured Fifth Elder Miao and walked towards the other end of the tunnel. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as her gaze swept across the surroundings. Don't come into contact with those puppets, in case the remnant yin qi on the puppets corrodes you. Yi Qing Luo reminded. Right judging elder was stunned. These should be the real secluded palace's guards. These guards are all puppets. Yi Qing Luo nodded. So those Miao tribe guards who came into contact with the corpses of the secluded palace's guards, it's best to investigate thoroughly. If there are any infected people, they should be quarantined as soon as possible. Right judging elder's expression congealed. He clenched his fists tightly. I understand. Saying that, he speedily took out a wooden box from his sleeve. He bit his finger and pressed it onto the wooden box. Very quickly, a huge patch of densely packed goo worms crawled out from the wooden box. Yi Qing Luo didn't look again. Instead, he followed Elder Zhua out of the tunnel. No one noticed. Miao Rongrong, who was originally controlled by a goo worm. Like a puppet with a broken string, she bent over on the spot. Slowly, he raised his head. The pair of tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. The endless black fog covered every corner of her eyes. Slowly, she quickened her pace. Step by step, he left the tunnel. The right judge elder was concentrating on the goo formation. His back was facing Miao Rongrong. He didn't notice that Miao Rongrong had disappeared. Not far from the Miao tribe's nursery, a black aura flew into the lush grass. He heard the rustling of the grass. In the blink of an eye, an ethereal figure that looked like a spirit stood up from the bushes. That figure was wearing a hooded black robe. His entire body was shrouded in the loose black robe. It was faintly discernible, making it hard to see him clearly. Yuyin, you're really useless. A cold voice, with a hint of mockery, opened its mouth. Beside the grass, on a lush tree, a figure jumped down. That young lady is simply too sinister. That ethereal figure who was addressed as Yuyin gritted his teeth and growled. If Yi Qing Luo was around, she would definitely be able to hear it. This sharp and hoarse voice was like a sawtooth. Chapter 2883. This isn't the first time you've fought with her, the tall man said coldly. His tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Yu Yin's body, which was floating in the air, bent down. The last time doesn't count, it doesn't count. The last time you said you couldn't defeat Yi Qing Luo was because it wasn't your original body that fought with Yi Qing Luo. Then this time, your spiritual consciousness had transformed into a physical form, but didn't you still lose to her? The man sneered and ridiculed. It's not because she has too many dirty tricks. Yuyin said as she lowered her head weakly. The loose black robe covered his entire body. The wind blew. He was like a black fog, ethereal and illusory. His faintly discernible body seemed like it could be blown away at any time, flickering in and out of existence. The shrill, piercing voice, coupled with this aggrieved tone. No matter how one listened to it, it was horrifying and uncomfortable. You can't do it more than 3 times. This is the second time the plan has been interrupted because of you. The man was unmoved. He coldly glanced at Yuyin. Last time, I pleaded for you and also shared half of the punishment for you. This time, you will be responsible for the Venerable One. Yuyin's body shook. Yuji, you can't just watch me die. I'm the only one in the entire Dark Shadow Palace who knows how to control corpses. If I die, the plan of the toy army will be completely interrupted. The man's eyes flashed. If that's the case, you can use this as an excuse to express your attitude to the Venerable One. Let's see if the Venerable One will forgive you. No. Don't. Yuyin screamed in fear. That voice was sharp and mournful. How could he tell the Venerable One that he was the only one who knew how to control corpses? The Venerable One hated people who thought too highly of themselves the most. Furthermore, if the Venerable One was willing, there were definitely many people who could learn the art of controlling corpses in a short period of time. He could not let the Venerable One hate him. He could not allow others to have the opportunity to learn the art of controlling corpses. He was the most special person, the true subordinate that the Venerable One had carefully cultivated. Yu-ji sneered and turned to leave. Looking at Yu-ji's back, Yu-yin's heart was filled with anxiety. He continuously thought about what to say, wanting to make Yu-ji stay. Among the 5 underworlds, Yu-ji was the one that Venerable One valued the most. As long as Yu-ji was willing to help, the Venerable One would definitely not blame him. With that thought in mind, Yu-yin pounced forward. Under the wide sleeves of the robe, a withered finger stretched out and wrapped around Yu-ji's shoulder tightly. Withered wood's fingers were like bones with color. A trace of disgust flashed across Yu-ji's eyes. He dodged to the side and frowned. "Don't touch me." Yu-yin immediately retracted his hand. "Yu-ji, I know why that little girl was able to escape the encirclement of my semi-finished products. As long as I tell this matter to the Venerable One, and you help me plead for mercy, the Venerable One will definitely not blame me. You know the reason." Yu-ji raised his eyebrows calmly. Yu-yin nodded and the black robe on his head moved up and down along with his nodding movement. "Yes. Although I'm not sure, but thinking about it carefully, I feel that. Other than that reason, I can't think of any other reason." He paused and lowered his voice, saying word by word, "Yi Qing Luo Shi knows the secret art of teleportation." "What did you say?" Yu-ji's usual cold indifference couldn't be maintained as he cried out in shock. Chapter 2884. Blink Movement's Secret Art. That was the ancient king of thieves' blink movement's secret art. It was rumored that it could teleport to any corner within a certain range of space. This kind of mysterious and powerful secret art. Thousands of years ago, after the ancient king of thieves had disappeared, it was lost. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly execute the blink movement's secret art? I just took a look. She just instantly broke through my semi-finished product's encirclement and appeared in front of me. Yu-yin said with a lack of confidence. He indeed wasn't sure whether Yi Qing Luo really knew the blink movement's secret art. But, based on the current situation, he could only insist on this point. As long as he informed the revered about this news, the revered would definitely let him off, and let him investigate this matter. Yu-ji narrowed his icy cold eyes as he stared at Yu-yin, his eyes flickering with an unknown glint. After some time, Yu-ji slowly crossed his arms as he sneered, "Yu-yin, I've crossed hands with Yi Qing Luo before. If she really knows the blink movement's secret art, why haven't I seen her executing it before?" This tone apparently didn't believe Yu-yin's words. Yu-yin instantly became anxious. "It's true. It's true. She really knows the blink movement's secret art, yes. Yes." Yu-ji's eyes were still half closed, as though he was in deep thoughts about something. After some time, his eyes narrowed slightly as his lips curled. "Since you're so certain, then I'll believe you this once." Yu-yin was instantly delighted. Just as he was about to speak, Yu-ji's brows suddenly creased slightly as his pair of solemn eyes looked towards a certain direction in front, as he cried out sternly, "Who's there?" "Ha!" A soft laughter which couldn't be heard was heard, as it traveled through the air, into their ears. Yu-ji's heart instantly tightened. All the muscles in his body subconsciously tensed up. This was a defensive stance. Somewhere in the forest, a slender figure slowly walked over. His purple robe billowed, as he gave off a suffocating evil chill. The light soaked his robe, outlining his tall and slender figure. As though he had walked out from the light, it was extremely oppressive and dazzling. He walked over step by step, as an incomparably powerful aura started from him, spreading out inch by inch, enveloping the entire heaven and earth. He was like an absolute king. The moment he appeared, he attracted everyone's attention. Yu-ji's pupils constricted. Every nerve in his body was screaming in fear. Before he could come back to his senses, the purple-robed monarch was already looking down at him from above. That handsome face was extraordinarily cold, and there was even an extremely shallow smile at the corners of his mouth. It was a smile that was not a smile. His killing intent was ferocious, cold, and bloodthirsty. "Where do you want to go, eh?" The simple ending sound caused Yuji's entire body to be filled with a kind of indescribable coldness. It was a powerful and intimidating pressure. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels had accumulated. He wanted to escape. He wanted to escape from this place where he couldn't even breathe. However, his feet seemed to be glued to the ground, unable to move. You. As a spiritual consciousness, Yuin was also affected by the overwhelming aura. His black robe fluttered. His face was not clear under the gloomy black robe, but fear could be seen all over his face. "You are the Venerable Emperor." Venerable Emperor. When the words Venerable Emperor came out of his mouth, Yuji didn't know where the courage came from. He bit down hard on his lower lip. The stinging feeling made his consciousness clear for a moment. Chapter 2885. Yu Yin's reaction was slightly slow for a moment, but soon after, he followed in the direction of Yuji, turned into a cool breeze, and quickly floated over. The people who schemed against me, still want to run." The cold voice was calm and indifferent. It was as if there were no ripples or waves at all. However, in the ears of Yuji and Yuin, this was like a death horn, blowing the music of death. Yiqing Luo followed the left judge and left the tunnel. At the end of the tunnel was the place where the ancient Gu King usually cultivated. As soon as he walked out of the tunnel, Elder Zhua stood rooted to the ground in a daze. His eyes stared straight ahead without blinking. Even Elder Miao, who was leaning on his shoulder and being supported by him, was in so much pain that he was gasping for air. However, when he saw Elder Zhua's expression, he was stunned. Yiqing Luo knew that too. Under the protection of the other 3 elders, Miao Yi safely arrived at the place where the Gu King rested. She let out a sigh of relief. He raised his head and followed Elder Zhua's gaze. Not far away, there was a transparent cylindrical body shining with dazzling light. A gigantic goo worm was lying in the transparent pillar of light. As for Miao Yi, she was standing in front of the light pillar and pressing her palm against it. The light from the light pillar quickly spread from Miao Yi's palm to her entire body. Miao Yi's long hair fluttered in the wind. That tender and pretty little face was now dyed with a gentle glow, making her look even more dazzling. "Saintess, please make a blood oath to the King of Venomous Worms that you will protect the Miao tribe during your term of office," Grand Elder Miao announced from the side. Miao Yi closed her eyes. A drop of blood seeped out from her forehead and slowly entered the light pillar, dripping onto Gu King's body. She's really the one recognized by Gu King, the one recognized by Gu King. Elder Zhuo almost burst into tears when he saw this. His eyes were slightly red as he stared at the King of Venomous Worms that had disappeared for a few years. Gu King accepted Miao Yi's blood without any resistance. His eyes reddened even more. In other words, there was no doubt that Miao Yi would become the Holy Maiden. For now, this was the best news. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, as her charming eyes calmly looked at that young and tender-looking girl whose eyes were shut. Now, Miao Yi was slowly growing. He believed that very soon, Miao Yi would be able to hold her own and truly support the entire Miao tribe. From the corner of her eyes, she glanced at 5th Elder Miao who had already stopped wailing. His eyes were rolling around as if he was thinking of some kind of conspiracy. She raised her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes. Then, he stepped forward, quietly and nervously staring at Miao Yi's inheritance ceremony, in the direction of the guests. At the same time, he didn't forget to say something. "Oh yes, I forgot to remind you. King of Venomous Worms accepted Yi's blood not only because he approved of her, but because Yi had signed a contract with King of Venomous Worms when she took him away. A contract. Elder Zwo was so shocked that his jaw almost fell to the ground. Fifth Elder Miao, who was hanging from his shoulder, was so shocked that he stood up abruptly. His eyes stared in disbelief at Miao Yi, who was still accepting the inheritance. She actually made a contract with King of Venomous Worms. There was really someone in this world who could make a contract with King of Venomous Worms. If Yi Qing Luo's words were true, then Fifth Elder Miao recalled his actions of going against Miao Yi. Chapter 2886. The inheritance ceremony of the King of Venomous Worms came to a successful end. Miao Yi had officially become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. However, after the ceremony, Miao Yi did not have the intention to celebrate with the Miao tribesmen or guests. Instead, he immediately left the three elders behind and rushed towards the direction of the tunnel. Great Elder Miao immediately stepped forward and stopped her. Elder Miao, no, that's not right. Saintess, you can't go over. Your most important mission now is to follow me to meet the Miao tribe's people and create a favorable impression. Miao Yi's expression was cold. Move. Saintess, don't be willful. Second Elder Miao stood on the other side of Miao Yi. You have just become the Miao tribe's holy maiden, you must first win the hearts of the Miao tribe's people. After all, the people of the Miao tribe are very clear about your identity. Although you are the Holy Virgin recognized by the Gu King, but in their hearts, they are still somewhat unconvinced. Holy Virgin, for the future of the Miao tribe, you can't do anything willful. The three elders tried their best to persuade him. One by one, they surrounded Miao Yi near the place where the King of Venomous Worms was raised. In the eyes of others, only the three elders were carefully teaching the new holy maiden how to be a good holy maiden. Miao Yi had been suppressing her anxiety. She could hold on until the inheritance ceremony of Gu King was over. That was because she had promised Yi Qing Luo that she must become the Miao tribe's sacred maiden, and enter the sacred maiden pavilion with her aunt to help the overlord cure the Gu. Now, the matter of the saintess had been settled. Miao Yi only wanted to rush back to the tunnel to confirm Yi Qing Luo's safety. Miao Rongrong was obviously abnormal in the tunnel. And, the guards from the Palace of Darkness that Miao Rongrong summoned were also extremely strange. A single guard could easily take down 3 Miao tribe elders. From this, one could see how powerful he was. No matter how powerful Yi Qing Luo was, it was also difficult for one person to fight against 4 opponents. She absolutely could not watch Yi Qing Luo get injured in order to save her. Get out of my way. Miao Yi's eyes turned cold. After receiving the Gu King's inheritance, her aura became stronger and stronger. A pair of ice-cold beautiful eyes swept over the 3 elders. The 3 elders instinctively shuddered. Great Elder Miao still wanted to say something. Miao Yi had already flipped her hand over, slamming it down towards Great Elder Miao's chest. Shocked, Great Elder Miao let go of her and quickly retreated, dodging the wind from her palm. Miao Yi retracted her hand midway. Taking advantage of this opportunity, her figure flashed and she quickly passed through the encirclement of the 3 elders. To you, perhaps your own interests are more important, but to me, the friends I acknowledge are more important. The girl's unwavering voice was clearly heard by the 3 elders even after she had left with quick steps. Just as they were about to step forward to stop him, they all stopped in their tracks. It was as if he had suddenly lost the reason to stop her. At this moment, Miao Yi broke through the encirclement of the 3 elders. The direction he was looking at was the entrance of the tunnel beside the realm where the Gu King was kept. When her eyes reflected that beautiful figure with a faint smile on her face, she felt a chill run down her spine. His eyes gradually turned red. In her eyes, the young girl was smiling at her in a devilish and flamboyant manner. She blinked her charming eyes with a hint of mischievousness. Miao Yi froze for a moment. After she regained her senses, she pursed her lips tightly and took small steps, rushing towards that direction. Qing Luo. Chapter 2887. Yi Qing Luo hugged her back. I'm fine, just that bit of ability of Miao Rongrong, she can't do anything to me. Saying that, Yi Qing Luo pulled the distance between the both of them as she gently rubbed Miao Yi's head. Why, don't you trust my ability? It's not that you don't trust. Miao Yi drooped her eyelashes. Miao Rongrong has always been sinister and cunning, and now that she has joined hands with secluded palace's power, I'm worried that you. No need to worry. Yi Qing Luo was just about to say something when suddenly, she glanced sideways at Elder Zhua, who was still staring at Miao Yi with a touched look. She didn't continue speaking. Their gazes fell onto Elder Zhua. Only then did Elder Zhua realize what was going on. He hurriedly lifted his sleeve and wiped his eyes. Saintess, take your time to chat with Miss Yi, I'll send 5th Elder Miao back first. Saying that, he carried 5th Elder Miao and took huge strides as he left speedily. There was no trace of hesitation in his footsteps. The few elders behind him followed closely and surrounded them. Their eyes were on Yi Qing Luo, sizing her up and occasionally glancing at the direction of the tunnel. After some time, they hesitantly asked, only the few of you. Elders Zhua and Miao Rongrong. Why aren't they out yet? Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept past them indifferently. If you're curious, why don't you go in and take a look yourself and you'll know. 4th Elder Miao shrunk his neck. Just recalling the moment when the secluded palace's guards took action against them, they were so powerful that they didn't even have a chance to retaliate. He still had a lingering fear. Let him take the initiative to go in and take a look. If he was caught by the secluded palace's guards again, would he still have a chance to live? Since you don't dare, then don't talk nonsense. Yi Qing Luo just took a look at 4th Elder Miao and saw through his thoughts. She scoffed lightly as her tone was filled with ridicule. And, Miao Rongrong is your doing, if sect masterine comes to find trouble, you elders will take responsibility. Grand Elder Miao's face turned pale. Then Miao Rongrong, she not dead yet. Yi Qing Luo replied coldly, but Miao Rongrong is going to die soon. Also, Miao Yixiong's whereabouts are still unknown. If anything happens, don't even think about blaming Yi. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's tone, the 3 elders could tell the seriousness in it. Their faces immediately turned ashen. They looked at each other and then quickly looked away. What needed to be reminded, Yi Qing Luo had already reminded him. The rest was not something that she should worry about. Yi Qing Luo pulled Miao Yi's wrist as she walked past the 3 stunned elders and walked towards another direction. Not far from the land of the king of venomous worms was the place where the Miao tribesmen and foreign guests gathered. Seeing Yi Qing Luo pulling the Miao tribe's new sacred maiden, leaving directly, he couldn't stop his blood from boiling with gossip. Everyone could see that the new holy maiden of the Miao tribe did not have a harmonious relationship with Elder Miao. Would this affect the development of the Miao tribe in the future? Furthermore, after the ceremony, the new saintess did not greet the Miao tribesmen. Instead, he followed his good sister, leaving behind the Miao tribesmen and the guests. She felt that she had become the saintess of the Miao tribe. Did he not put them in his eyes? Chapter 2888. The 3 elders were in a daze when they heard the crowd's discussions and hurriedly pushed the doubts which Yi Qing Luo had left for them to the back of their minds. Now, Miao Yi had become the sacred maiden. This was an unchangeable fact. For the future development of the Miao tribe, they had to think of a way to help Miao Yi to stabilize the hearts of the people. Yi Qing Luo pulled Miao Yi as they walked down the mountain path. Not long later, all the hubbub was isolated by their ears. The surroundings were filled with the rustling sound of the trees and grass. Faintly, they could hear the sound of the goo worms moving. If it wasn't for the Meow tribe's disturbance. Just looking at the Meow tribe's scenery, it was pleasing to the eyes. When they reached the bottom of the mountain, the Meow tribe's people were already at the land of the Goo King, witnessing the inheritance ceremony. The entire Meow tribe was extremely quiet. Meow Yi took a few steps and couldn't suppress the doubts in her heart. Qing Luo, what do you want to tell me? Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways at her and immediately looked towards the front as her footsteps slowed down. I intend to leave the Meow tribe. Where are you going? Meow Yi hastened her footsteps as she walked past Yi Qing Luo and stood in front of her, blocking her way. The Overlord's poison has yet to be cured. If you leave, what will happen to the Overlord? As Meow Yi said that, her beautiful eyes were filled with guilt. The Overlord's poison had yet to be cured. This was just an excuse. Yi Qing Luo was her only good friend and sister. She was also the only good sister who would disregard everything to stand behind her and become her backing. She knew that Yi Qing Luo would eventually leave the Meow tribe. She knew that she and Yi Qing Luo would eventually part ways. But she didn't expect it to be so soon. The feeling of reluctance started to spread in her heart. Yi Qing Luo saw through Meow Yi's thoughts. She laughed lightly as she raised her hand and rubbed Meow Yi's head. Silly girl, it's not like we won't meet again. As she said that, her hand slid down from Meow Yi's hair. Ah, Xian centrifugal worm and love worm is a hidden danger, and if it's not cured, I won't be able to rest assured. But the Meow tribe is already unstable because of me now. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes drooped as she sighed softly. Secluded Darkness Palace is targeting me. Didn't Miao Rongrong find them to deal with me? Miao Yi was startled. Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Miao Rongrong is merely a chess piece of the Secluded Darkness Palace. Her main motive is not to deal with you or the Miao tribe, but to deal with me completely. He recalled the dense demonic energy that controlled Miao Rongrong. He thought of the corpse controlling technique that old man Tsang had mentioned. Then, he thought of the Vice Palace Master and the group of rats that couldn't be completely annihilated, the Dark Forces. Things related to the Dark Nether Palace. In fact, they were all connected together. It was all a trap for her. The purpose of the underground forces was obvious. The Dark Forces wanted her profound heart jade. The one and only divine phoenix profound heart jade in her body. Then, was that the goal of Yu Palace as well? Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Miao Yi's voice suddenly rang beside her ear. Yi Qing Luo regained her senses. What did you say earlier? I said, if the Secluded Darkness Palace is really targeting you, then all the more you should stay in the Miao tribe. In this way, at least I can still protect you. Miao Yi said seriously. Chapter 2889. She held Miao Yi's hand, and the corners of her lips curled up, tinged with warmth. The power of the Palace of Gloomy Shadows is unpredictable. If I stay in the Miao tribe, I might cause the Miao tribe to be exterminated. Miao Yi's pupils dilated as she stared at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. Yi Qing Luo pinched her little face. The Miao tribe has already been affected quite a lot. These few days, I'm afraid you'll be very busy. She succinctly explained what happened with the guards of the Palace of Darkness. Of course, she did not explain that those were corpses controlled by the corpse-controlling technique. It only meant that the remaining evil energy on the guards of the gloomy palace would invade one's body. Hearing this, Miao Yi covered her mouth with both hands. That demonic aura, what will happen if it invades the body? If there is darkness in one's heart, it is very easy for evil energy to corrode one's reason and turn one into a puppet of evil energy. Yi Qing Luo's expression was grave. I've already spoken to the judging elders about this matter. If they discover any guards who are behaving abnormally, just kill them directly. Miao Yi's eyelashes fluttered. After a long while, Miao Yi lowered her eyelids. Her voice was a little hoarse. Indeed, he deserves to be killed. This abnormality shows that his heart is very dark. There is a dark place. In the future, he will definitely do something to harm the Miao tribe. However, he was still a member of the Miao tribe. She still felt a little sad in her heart. Yiqing Luo could see through Miao Yi's thoughts as she patted her shoulder lightly. As for the others, as long as you guide them properly and let them force out the evil qi, then there will be no problem. Miao Yi lowered her head and did not speak for a long time. Yiqing Luo changed the topic as she hooked her shoulder with one arm and whispered into her ear with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll stay in the Peach Blossom restaurant during the day and I'll sneak over to the Miao tribe to look for you at night." Yiqing Luo felt very warm. Miao Yi's heart gradually calmed down. When she heard Yiqing Luo's words, she couldn't help but laughed. "Are you looking at me or the overlord? Not cute at all." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at her and even stretched out her hand to pinch her face fiercely. "If you see through it but don't expose it, we are still good friends." Of course, she could not really leave the Miao tribe. She had to personally watch over Dmo Xian to cure the goo. Only after personally confirming that the venom in Dmo Xian's body had been completely removed, could he be at ease. Miao Yi suddenly thought of something and immediately said, "Let's go back to the Saintess courtyard first. I will go to the Saintess pavilion with my aunt to find a way to cure the goo. 2 people working together will be more efficient." Yiqing Luo was about to nod her head in agreement. Suddenly, his sharp ears twitched. He seemed to have sensed something strange. She narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brows. "What's the matter?" Miao Yi sensed the change in Yiqing Luo's breathing as she raised her head to look at her. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as the expression on her face turned gentle as she laughed lightly. "Nothing much, I just suddenly recalled that there's some matters to take note of regarding the demonic qi on the guards from secluded Darkness Palace which I forgot to remind the judging elder." As she spoke, she glanced at a certain place out of the corner of her eyes. An imperceptible look flashed across his eyes. The smile at the corner of his mouth became gentler. "You go to the Saintess courtyard first. I will return to the tunnel and inform the right judge." Miao Yi did not suspect anything. After giving him a few instructions, she walked toward the direction of the Saintess courtyard. Yiqing Luo didn't return to the land of the Gu King. She stood on the original spot, waiting for Miao Yi's figure to completely disappear from her sight. Chapter 2890. The nearer she got. Yiqing Luo could clearly sense the fluctuation of the profound qi. That fluctuation surged in the air, piercingly cold and filled with a killing intent. Here, why would there be such a strong profound qi fluctuation? Could it be that the Palace of Darkness had infiltrated into the Miao tribe? Yiqing Luo kept her presence as she carefully approached the direction of the profound qi fluctuation. This was an extremely secretive forest. The surroundings were filled with lush trees and weeds which had not been trimmed for years. As far as the eye could see, other than a patch of green, there was a patch of withered yellow. There were no other colors. This was indeed a suitable place to talk about secrets, because this place was filled with fallen leaves and bushes. When someone got near, the sound of a pair of feet stepping on the withered yellow could be heard. Yiqing Luo's footwork was very fast, and as light as a feather. Just as she neared the forest, not a single sound was made. Very quickly, Yiqing Luo saw 3 figures ahead, flickering, moving at an extremely fast speed. Yiqing Luo gauged the distance. Following that, she leaned against a lush tree and closed her eyes. But she turned around. A petite red figure had already appeared. Sigh, not far away from the three of them, on a lush tree which was enough to hide Yiqing Luo's figure. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes through the gaps of the leaves as she sized up the battlefield. Below, it was a mess. And there were at least 20 overcorpses dressed in the Palace of Darkness Guard uniform. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. These puppets again. How many of these puppets did the Palace of Darkness create? How much mental power did that person have, to be able to use the corpse-controlling skill time and time again, to control so many corpses? And what made Yiqing Luo even more shocked was, the puppets that had fallen to the ground could be considered to be complete. Some had their hands broken, some had their legs broken, some had their heads separated. But none of them were like those puppets which Yiqing Luo faced. They weren't afraid of pain. Even if their bodies were smashed into pieces, they could still stand up and attack again and again. These puppets actually laid on the ground just like that. Yiqing Luo was still in shock about those puppets. Suddenly, she felt a gush of powerful profound energy, like boiling water, surging continuously, enveloping the entire forest. Thick profound force undulations rolled like a tide. Yiqing Luo was so shocked that her chest felt stuffy and she almost fell off the branch. Ah! Bang! 2 screams rang out. It was accompanied by the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt strange. It was clearly 2 screams. Why, there was only one sound of someone falling to the ground. Yiqing Luo turned towards the direction of the voice. When his gaze landed on the tall and slender figure in purple, his pupils instantly shrank. A man in a flowing purple robe stood there like a god. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered around him. That peerless face was cold to the extreme. Ah Xian. It was Ah Xian. Wasn't he in the Saintess courtyard? Why did he appear here? Why did he get into conflict with people from the Dark Shadow Palace? Yiqing Luo was just about to leap down from the tree. However, she was stopped by Old Man Tsang. Girl Luo, wait a moment. Look at the person lying on the ground. Yiqing Luo paused. She looked at the place where she had landed heavily on the ground, sending leaves and dust flying everywhere, as well as a huge crater. The dust billowed and a figure was faintly discernible. Yiqing Luo could vaguely see that person's look. She frowned, secluded solitude. Chapter 2891. Why was Yu Ji in the Miao tribe? Why did he fight with Dmo Xian? Anne. The miserable shrieks earlier were 2 different voices. One was Yu Ji. Who was the other one? Yiqing Luo's gaze surveyed Yu Ji's surroundings, but she didn't see the other figure. You. Yu Ji's hoarse voice was filled with rage. He only spat out 2 words. Then a big mouthful of blood came out from Yu Ji's mouth. The thick stench of blood made Yu Ji unable to say a complete sentence. Yu Ji coughed out a few painful coughs, his eyes were bloodshot with hatred and his face was pale as he stared at Dmo Xian. His body was trembling uncontrollably. Exchanging glances with Dmo Xian, he only felt that his entire body seemed to be pierced by many sharp needles. Needle after needle, densely pierced on every corner of his body. Under this kind of powerful pressure, there was no one who could resist it. Even Yu Ji, who had always thought highly of himself, had no choice but to accept the hatred in his heart. The godlike overlord was definitely not an undeserved reputation. Just a glance, a light wave of his sleeves and he could take away his life directly. Yu Ji's heart was like a surging tide, setting off a raging wave. Dmo Xian's expression was calm as he looked at Yu Ji indifferently. Piercingly cold profound chi lingered and revolved around his body. The surrounding air seemed to have congealed. Yiqing Luo, who wasn't in Dmo Xian's attack range, She could feel that her heart was being squeezed, making it hard for her to breathe. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream pierced the air. That voice was heard from Yuji's direction. But that voice didn't sound like Yuji's voice. Suddenly, Yuji's body sat up straight. Following that, as though he was being controlled by something, his body kept on trembling. A black figure bounced out from Yuji's body. That black figure was bounced onto the ground and kept on rolling, giving out a miserable shriek. At the same time, the moment the black figure was bounced out, Yuji's body fell down softly. What was that? It actually ran out from Yuji's body. Yiqing Luo pressed down on her uncomfortable heart as she propped herself up and looked over. The black shadow lying on the ground was somewhat similar to the appearance of old man Tsang's spirit body. It was faintly discernible and illusory. He was covered in a large black robe, and his entire body was shrunk into the black robe, making it impossible to see his appearance. Insignificant tricks, and you dare to display your slight skill in front of an expert? Dmo Xian's cold voice reverberated in this tranquil forest. The man's face was cold and emotionless. A pair of inky peach blossom eyes, deep and piercingly cold. Overlord, I beg you, please let me live. I'm just a spiritual consciousness, just a spiritual consciousness. Yuyin writhed on the ground and begged pitifully. As soon as the voice was heard, instantly, it made Yiqing Luo's eyes flicker slightly. This voice, neither male nor female. It was also extremely sharp and ear-piercing. She had only heard it once, and she would never forget it. The body that controlled Miao Rongrong. The person who controlled the secluded palace's guards, created dense demonic qi, and knew how to control corpses. That person, after escaping from Miao Rongrong's body, he didn't escape from the Miao tribe, instead. He stayed in the Miao tribe. What was the relationship between that person and Yuji? Chapter 2892. Injuring this lord's woman, you still want to leave here alive. Dmo Xian faintly curled his crimson lips, a murderous aura flashed in between his brows. A gust of wind rose. The hurricane rolled. It blew his purple robe, making a loud fluttering sound. The 3,000 strands of black hair scattered over his shoulders danced wildly in the wind. He was obviously smiling. But when Yuji and Yuyin raised their heads to look at Dmo Xian, they only felt that the man was shrouded in a layer of dazzling light. That man was really dazzling, like a king. Unrivaled. Overlord, as long as you let me go. Let me go, I will do anything you want me to do. Yuyin was scared stiff by Dmo Xian's imposing manner. He stuttered, begging for mercy. Immediately, as though he thought of something, his eyes lit up. I can help that aunt. No, it's mistress of the imperial palace. I can help her control those toys. I can help her deal with the palace of darkness. Dmo Xian heard that, slightly narrowed his long peach blossom eyes. This subtle action made Yuyin overjoyed. There was a reaction. It meant that the overlord was interested. Interested, that meant there was still room for discussion. Yuyin immediately continued, Overlord, I know many secrets of the palace of darkness. I can tell you, tell mistress of the imperial palace. As he spoke, he sized up Dmo Xian's expression. Overlord, you've seen my corpse-controlling skill with your own eyes. As long as you have my corpse-controlling skill, the imperial palace will be able to defeat the palace of darkness easily. Yuyin. After Yuji heard Yuyin betraying his master for glory, he roared in anger. This roar made him spit out a big mouthful of blood. Yuyin didn't even look at him. He just kept using his flattering eyes to look at Dmo Xian in a daze. Under Yuyin's hopeful gaze, Dmo Xian smiled lightly. Yuyin's flattering gaze suddenly froze. Even though he was just a spiritual consciousness. They could feel a chill rising from their spines. This lord will not allow any unexpected factors to hurt this lord's woman. Dmo Xian's voice was still that elegant and calm. However, the killing intent in his voice caused one to tremble in fear. Yu Yin's illusory body collapsed to the ground, trembling. For a moment, he couldn't even utter a single word to beg for mercy. "Aren't you poisoned by the centrifugal goo? Why would you still do that to that woman?" Yu Ji spoke in a hoarse voice, coughing sounds mixed in. Initially, Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong had the ambition to get Dmo Xian. He was the one who plotted from behind the scenes. Finally, the matter of using love goo. He was the one who had secretly given Miao Yixiong advice. Although the love goo plan failed. But a woman's jealousy made Miao Rongrong use the centrifugal venom on Dmo Xian. But why? Dmo Xian totally could not see any signs of being poisoned. Chapter 2893. Goo. Dmo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as a tinge of ridicule flashed past his icy cold eyes. "That thing, is it of any use to me?" Yu Ji's face turned completely pale. And at this moment, Yi Qing Luo, who was nestled on the tree branch, watching this scene. Her feelings were extremely complicated. Whether Dmo Xian was affected by the goo, she knew best. Moreover, Dmo Xian's current state looked like he had indeed recovered to normal. Indeed seemed like he wasn't under the control of the centrifugal goo. But Yi Qing Luo knew. She was the only one who knew. The current Dmo Xian. He was still the same person who had forgotten her. If it was the previous Ah Xian. When he mentioned her, his eyes were gentle. In his eyes, there would be a tender glint. And not like now. Even when he mentioned her, there wasn't any fluctuation in his expression. What he said was, "This lord's woman." And not, "This lord's Lil Luo," although it was just a difference of a few words. But the meaning was totally different. Dmo Xian would appear here. He would fight with Yu Ji and Yu Yin. It was for her. To seek revenge for her. But even so, Yi Qing Luo's heart didn't feel happy. She stared blankly at the tall and handsome man who looked like a god. She couldn't describe the feeling in her heart. And couldn't understand. Dmo Xian, who was in the centrifugal goo mode. Why would he make a move to seek revenge for her, to personally deal with Yu Ji and Yu Yin? Logically speaking, Dmo Xian, who had forgotten her, was only because of the feelings deep in his soul, which made him have a little bit of interest towards her. Which made him unable to really make a move to kill her. But he would absolutely not make a move against the people from secluded palace for her. After all, Dmo Xian wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble. Instead, "We have underestimated you." Yu Ji took a deep breath, as he sneered. He coughed lightly as he laughed. His mouth was filled with blood. His eyes stared intently at Dmo Xian, as his eyes were deep, as a dim light flickered. "But, Overlord." He opened his mouth again, as his voice revealed a trace of ruthless coldness. "Do you really think you're the true God of the world, ruling over all living beings?" "No, impossible. In front of our venerable one, you're just an ant that can be squashed to death at any time." After he finished this sentence, he said. His chest churned. He spat out a mouthful of blood. But he was still laughing maniacally, as if he didn't fear death at all. Dmo Xian's gaze was faint as he looked at Yu Ji calmly and disdainfully. He did not care about Yu Ji's words at all. To him, the words of people who were unimportant to him were just nonsense. However, Yi Qing Luo, who was nestled on the tree branch, upon hearing Yu Ji's belittling words about Dmo Xian, couldn't hold it in any longer. How could this bunch of scum talk about her and humiliate her? She couldn't care less. However, in front of her, to belittle Dmo Xian like that, she could not tolerate it. Swish, a figure flitted past the forest and flew straight away. Following that, an extremely loud slap resounded in the sky. Yuji only felt a burning pain on his face. Even his ears were buzzing. A few of his teeth were also knocked out, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. He didn't even have time to react. His chest was squeezed by an intense pain. A powerful force pressed down on his body, making him unable to move. Yuji was in heart-wrenching pain, as he tried his best to open his eyes. Chapter 2894. The young lady's looks were devastatingly beautiful, like a fairy, with a biting cold killing intent in between her brows. The young lady's foot stepped on his chest. That red robe fluttered, like an excited flame. Yuji's lips squirmed, spitting out a word, pulling on the muscles on his face, causing him to suck in a breath of cold air. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as her voice was chilly. My Xian is indeed not the god of this world, and has no interest in being the ruler of this world. If that whatever revered of yours is really that strong, then why is there a need to be so sneaky, like a dark rat, only daring to hide in the dark, doing those shameful things? Her tone was filled with ridicule. Towards the revered, in Yuji's words, it was extremely disdainful. Only know how to push you bunch of obedient dogs out, time and time again, playing dirty tricks behind my back, not even daring to show your face, and you still have the cheek to brag. Your skin is so thick, probably it can even be used as a protective shield. No wonder this slap of mine hurts so much. Yiqing Luo's attitude was extremely arrogant. Every word, every sentence, agitated Yuji's pair of scarlet eyes, as his chest heaved up and down violently. But the more agitated he was, the more his internal injury was affected, the more bursts of tearing pain. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly, as she moved her foot away from Yuji's chest. Just as her foot landed on the ground, she didn't forget to give Yuji a fierce kick. My man, I can't even bear to scold him, and you still dare to belittle him. Yuji was in so much pain that he couldn't hold back his miserable cries. Whereas the man standing behind Yiqing Luo, upon hearing what Yiqing Luo said, that indifferent and emotionless face faintly revealed a smile. That rosy red thin lips slowly outlined a faint arc. His entire face seemed to have softened a little, increasingly peerless. When Yiqing Luo stopped Yuji's actions, as she patted her own hands, a strong and powerful arm encircled her slender waist. Yiqing Luo's petite body was instantly brought into a broad embrace. The elegant sandalwood fragrance seeped into Yiqing Luo's nose. Her heart gradually calmed down. Weren't you enjoying the show over there? Why did you come out again? Dmo Xian's lips curled into a smile as he squinted at the person in his arms. From this angle, he could see the girl's fair neck. It seemed to be dotted with a layer of fluffy fluorescent light. It gave him the urge to take a bite out of it. Although Yiqing Luo's back was facing Dmo Xian, but he could clearly feel Dmo Xian's scorching gaze. She bit her lower lip, and her tone softened. He actually compared you with that venerable one who is as sinister as a rat. How can that rat be mentioned in the same breath as you? You're so protective of me. His low, hoarse, and clear voice was as mellow as fine wine, intoxicating people. Especially when he whispered in her ear. This made Yiqing Luo's entire body felt limp and numb. She blushed and struggled with her hands. Aren't you protecting me too? You're this lord's woman, naturally this lord will protect you. Dmo Xian straightened her body, and his slender fingers lifted her lower jaw. That pair of deep peach blossom eyes sparkled with a scorching radiance. In an instant, it seemed as though her soul was sucked into it. Yi-Ching Luo's heart palpitated rapidly. She was unable to resist the charm of this man in front of her. The two of them were being intimate. That black figure who was curled up by the side, slowly drifted towards Yuji's direction. Chapter 2895. Ugh. Yuji's pupils dilated as he stared fiercely at the black figure in front of him. He wanted to speak. But that hand had already stretched out to his chest. The icy cold touch brought along a chilling aura as it directly seeped into his skin. Thick yin qi started to spread from that withered palm. Yuji, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Yuji's sharp voice rang beside Yuji's ear. Following that, his tone turned icy cold as he gave a sinister smile. So, go and die. His words had just ended. The smile on his face instantly congealed. Bit by bit, it turned into disbelief and shock. Yuji's body stiffened as he retreated a few steps backwards. He hung his head down. He saw. That hand which was about to sink into Yuji's chest had already been held tightly by Yuji. An even more intense evil chi spread out from Yuji's palm. In an instant, it swallowed all the evil chi which he had released. You. How did you? Yuji wanted to retract his hand. But Yuji's strength made him unable to struggle free. Endless evil chi kept on swallowing all the energy in Yuji's body. Yuji's illusory figure seemed even more blurry now. As though the next moment, it would disappear along with the wind. Their movements naturally attracted the attention of the little lover who was still being affectionate. Yi-Ching Luo's gaze caught a glimpse of that evil chi and immediately reacted. She speedily pushed Dmo Xian's embrace away and with a flick of her wrist, the glower flame fan flew out, raising thousands of wind blades as it flew out. Don't even think of escaping. Yuji, who was still absorbing the Yuji's evil chi, felt a strong threat coming towards him. After he had sufficient energy to absorb. The injuries on Yuji's body had already healed up speedily. Immediately, Yuji slammed both his palms onto the ground and with a somersault, he avoided Yi-Ching Luo's attack. Bam! The entire ground was filled with sand and dust as the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The profound energy surged, bringing about an extreme sense of oppression. A black figure was bounced up from the flying sand and dust. Yi-Ching Luo leapt up and grabbed that person's black robe. She fixed her eyes on Yuji, who had already gone far away and was trying his best to escape. She frowned slightly and looked sideways at Dmo Xian. Xian, you go after him, I'll guard this person. After she finished speaking, she lifted the eerie black robe and threw it heavily on the ground. Most of Nether Yin's demonic energy and his own strength were sucked out. At this moment, he couldn't even maintain the state of his spiritual sense. It was faintly discernible as the wind blew. You. Yi-Ching Luo was about to ask when she suddenly noticed that the man behind her had been following her closely. She stopped what she wanted to ask and turned to look at Dmo Xian. Why aren't you chasing after them? Although you're this lord's woman, but it doesn't mean that you can command this lord. Dmo Xian's tranquil and serene peach blossom eyes looked at her without blinking. That pair of clear, cold eyes that seemed to be unable to cause even the slightest ripple were as deep as the sea. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes flashed as she concealed the stinging pain from the bottom of her heart, trying her best to make her voice sound calmer. I'm not giving an order. Don't you want to kill these two people as well? Dmo Xian's brows rose as he was bewitching. This lord just doesn't like them. Moreover, since you want to do it yourself, you're this lord's woman, so this lord will naturally give this chance to you. Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo looked at the direction where Yuji disappeared. Over there, Yuji's figure was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 2896. She helplessly stared at Dmo Xian. She had already given up the thought of chasing after Yuji. She turned around and continued to look at Yuin. The man behind her once again leaned forward and stretched out his hand to encircle her waist. The man's warm temperature covered her. It was the kind of voice that could make one's ears pregnant, whispering in her ear. The most important thing is, you're this lord's woman. How can this lord allow you to be alone with another man? Another man. Man. Yiqing Luo's original intention to struggle froze as her eyes looked at Yuin with uncertainty. You mean him? Dmo Xian raised his brows as he smiled without saying a word. Yiqing Luo, this damn thing, could he be called a man? Could he be considered as a man? She wasn't blind. Her brain wasn't stupid. How could she possibly let go of the peerless Dmo Xian who was comparable to a god? Instead, she was interested in Yuin, this. From his voice, he sounded neither male nor female, and his entire body was like a dried-up bone monster. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched, expressing that she didn't want to talk to this man who lied through his teeth. Dmo Xian saw her keeping silent as he leaned down. The elegant scent of sandalwood seeped into her nose. Why, are you angry? His voice was low and hoarse, and there was a hint of amusement in it. As though he was facing his pet who was throwing a tantrum. His large palm was still on Yiqing Luo's head as he gently rubbed it. That head of hair which wasn't tied up was also rubbed as it scattered down. 3,000 fine hair, scattered down. It set off that devastatingly beautiful face, which was even more alluring. Dmo Xian's eyes, dimmed slightly, faintly flashed with a trace of excitement. Slender fingers suddenly clasped her lower jaw. The man's peerless face enlarged in Yiqing Luo's pupils. Just as the man was about to reach the young lady's pink lips. All of a sudden, a hand was placed between the two people's lips. Yiqing Luo's other hand pressed against Dmo Xian's chest, pushing him away. Dmo Xian, who was rejected by Yiqing Luo once again, had an ugly expression on his face. His cold face stiffened as his brows creased tightly. All of them showed his anger at this moment. As my man, you can't even fulfill a small request of mine, and you still want to ask for a reward? Yiqing Luo faced the ugly expression of Dmo Xian, but she didn't show any signs of fear or nervousness. She raised her eyebrows and glanced at him with a smile. Then, her soft body suddenly leaned into his arms. Her soft little hand circled around his neck, causing his body to lean down a little. Tiptoe, so tiptoe. Her lips pressed against Dmo Xian's ear. The girl's soft voice carried her unique sweetness and softness, as well as a hint of coquettishness. Anyone who heard it would feel their whole body go limp. Hey, if Lord Dizun wants to get some beauties from me as a reward, you have to behave yourself. After all, it's not so easy to be my man. As soon as she finished speaking, the man increased the strength of his arms and was about to lock her delicate body. Just like a loach, slippery, slid out of the man's arms. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, as she gave him a crafty wink. Following that, she didn't look at Dmo Xian anymore, as her eyelids drooped, looking down at the side, the figure floating, indistinctly discernible. She didn't notice the man behind her, at the instant she turned around. He slowly raised his hand, as he caressed the place where the young lady whispered in his ear. Chapter 2897. Yiqing Luo squatted down as she squinted her eyes, sizing Yuin up. The figure that was shrouded in the black robe was already transparent. Yiqing Luo couldn't see clearly what the person under the black robe looked like. Yuin. Yuji. Yiqing Luo muttered their names. Do you know Yuhan, Yunu, and Yuming? She mentioned the three of them's names. The figure under the black robe moved. A transparent face which couldn't be seen clearly was revealed from under the black robe. But Yi-Ching Luo could clearly feel it. A shocked expression came from Yu Yin's face. As though he was shocked, how could she say Yu Han and the others' names so clearly? Looks like we know each other. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled. I'm very curious, what's the relationship between your so-called overlord and Godless Island? Yu Yin's body trembled even more violently. Yi-Ching Luo's smile deepened. If you can answer my question properly and tell me everything you know, I have a way to let you live on. Pausing, she smiled as her eyes curved, live on in human form. The last sentence made Yu Yin raise his head abruptly. As though he had exhausted all his energy, he stared at Yi-Ching Luo as he spoke word by word. Really? Yi-Ching Luo tilted her head as her tone was relaxed. Aren't you curious why I can execute the blink movement secret art? Yu Yin's fingers under the black robe curled up. Then he heard Yi-Ching Luo laughing lightly as she continued, so, I can let you turn from a spiritual body into a real human, and retain all your current abilities. She seemed to have thought of something as she added another sentence, of course, after you become a real human, you must be used by me. Yu Yin was agitated as his spiritual body became even more transparent. Yu Yin himself could clearly feel that all the energy in his body was diminishing continuously. Once, his energy was completely depleted. He didn't even have the energy to return to his spiritual body. Once it exceeded 24 hours, he would not be able to return to his spiritual body. He would die completely. Even his soul would not be left in this world. He had to admit. At this critical juncture of life and death, Yi-Ching Luo's words, to him, was a huge temptation. Whereas at this moment, Yi-Ching Luo struck while the iron was hot as she continued to tempt him. Yu Yin, you should be very clear. You can only choose to believe me. Only I can let you live on. With a teasing smile on her face, Lin Mingya's slender fingers slowly stroked the cherry blossom pattern on her arm. He chuckled softly, as long as you nod your head, I will immediately let you witness whether or not I have the strength to help you. This sentence made Yu Yin's tensed heart completely relax. He was afraid of death. He wanted everything that could allow him to survive. He nodded vigorously. The excited Yu Yin also didn't notice it. At the moment he nodded, a wisp of white cheese spilled out from the cherry blossom pattern that Yi-Ching Luo's fingers had brushed past. Slowly, it floated into his body. At the same time, Yi-Ching Luo pressed on Yu Yin's shoulder and pretended to be mysterious as she closed her eyes. Now, I will temporarily let your spiritual consciousness recover your mental power as a down payment. As for the rest, after you have answered my questions, I will then help you to fulfill your wish. These words, no matter how one listened, it didn't seem believable. But unfortunately, Yu Yin was bent on survival. Chapter 2898. Just as what Yi-Ching Luo said. Falling into Yi-Ching Luo's hands, he would die no matter what. He could only choose to believe Yi-Ching Luo, there was no other way. When that white-colored breath had completely seeped into Yu Yin's body, Yu Yin really felt a surge of abundant energy, growing continuously in his heart. That faintly discernible, translucent figure, slowly revealed its physical body. His entire body's energy had also recovered a little. Although, it had only recovered about 40% or so. But at least, it allowed him to move about freely. This is too unbelievable. Yu Yin stood up in shock, as he raised his hand, and kept looking left and right. How serious was the injury he had suffered? He himself was the clearest about it. In such a short period of time, it allowed him, who was only a spiritual consciousness, to speedily recover 40% of his energy. This was something that even a revered could not do. At this moment, Yu Yin was already deeply convinced that Yi-Ching Luo was able to help him recover his human form. Looking at Yu Yin's sour and wretched face, one look and one knew that he wasn't a kind person, as he revealed an ecstatic smile. Yiqing Luo expressed that being a charlatan was actually quite fun. Especially when she saw Yuyin in a daze after being fooled by her. She couldn't help but wanted to laugh. No wonder there were so many charlatans, fake divine doctors existing. She tried her best to suppress her laughter, as she promptly removed her hand in a serious manner. When she released her hand, she didn't forget to intentionally make her face slightly pale. Yiqing Luo's face was pale, as she heaved a long sigh of turbid air. When she was retreating, her body also swayed a few times. The man behind her cooperated and supported her. One hand encircled her slender waist. He held her soft and delicate body in his arms. Yiqing Luo struggled slightly, but was unable to break free. She still had to continue her act, so naturally she didn't dare to struggle too much. She could only brace herself, as she leaned into Dmo Xian's embrace. Then she raised her hand, her slender fair fingers, as she gently pressed against her forehead, which had non-existent perspiration, as though she had expended too much energy. Alright, let's temporarily restore this spiritual consciousness's internal injury. Yiqing Luo said weakly, as her eyes swept across the gloomy atmosphere. Then, in her mind, a voice reminded her, spiritual consciousness is controlled by spiritual energy. My spiritual energy is not as strong as yours, so it's not easy for me to recover. If you really want to live in a human form, you have to find your spiritual body. His eyes lit up. He grinned and laughed excitedly. Good. Auntie, Dizun. Madam Dizun, I will bring my spiritual body back. When the time comes, I will have to trouble you. Thank you. Yiqing Luo's words had completely dispelled all of Yu Yin's suspicions. To be able to understand things such as spiritual sense and spirit body so well, he must have the ability to help him regain his human form. Even if Yiqing Luo couldn't do it. And His Majesty, the Overlord. Thinking of this, Yu Yin seemed to have already imagined the scene of him living in the world with a human body. Don't celebrate too early. Yiqing Luo seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. Her complexion had recovered a little, and with Dmo Xian's support, she straightened up. What you promised me, if it doesn't satisfy me, I will not help you achieve your wish. Yu Yin looked at Dmo Xian, and immediately smiled like a blooming chrysanthemum. Madam Dizun, don't worry, don't worry. This is our deal. What do you want to know? Just ask. I will absolutely tell you everything I know, without reserve. Star. Chapter 2899. Tell me, what is the relationship between Yu Ming, Yu Han and Yu Nu? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and asked. Towards Yu Ming. Yiqing Luo had a deep impression of him. After all, the people she met in the 21st century. She was still curious about what Yu Ming was looking for when he appeared in the 21st century. As for her, why was she sent to the plane of the 21st century? It was purely because to open the Yi family's mausoleum. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes and looked at Yu Yin. Is the Lord of Godless Island the one you are loyal to? Yu Yin was straightforward. We are the subordinates of the Lord, known as Ghost Hand 5 Nether. Ghost Hand 5 Nether. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at Dmo Xian. There was no change in the man's expression. As if he didn't know who the Ghost Hand 5 Nether that Yu Yin mentioned was. Yiqing Luo decisively dispelled the idea of asking Dmo Xian. She turned to Old Man Tsang. Have you heard of the Ghost Hand 5 Nether? No, in the upper realm. If there was such a powerful person, it's impossible that I don't know. Old Man Tsang was also full of doubts. Like Yu Ming, Yu Han etc., these 5 Nether. Every one of them was very powerful. And the power behind them was obviously not simple. It was impossible that they were unknown people. But Old Man Song rummaged through his memories. He had never heard of this name. He had never heard of the legend of Ghost Hand 5 Nether on Godless Island. Yi Ching Luo pursed her lips and pondered for a moment. After you became a weapon spirit, you never woke up again, could it be? This Ghost Hand 5 Nether is an organization that appeared after you became a weapon spirit. Old Man Song, it's possible. Yi Ching Luo squinted her eyes and sized Yuan up for a while. You 5 Nether are the only subordinates of the Lord. Although we 5 Nether grew up together, but our relationship is not harmonious. Between each of us, we have our own ambitions, we all want to surpass each other, to become the person who can be valued by the Lord. At the mention of the other 4 underworlds, the gloomy light in his eyes darkened a little. Because I'm an anomaly, the Venerable One left my spiritual body behind in order to preserve the purity of my mental energy, so he let me work for him in secret. Each of us has a different mission. If it is not necessary, we are not allowed to tell each other about our mission. I carry out missions in secret and rarely interact with them. Therefore, my relationship with them can't be considered close. Yuan paused for a moment before continuing. As far as I know, the Venerable One's subordinates are definitely not only the 5 Nether. I was in the dark, so I could see more clearly. To be precise, we, the 5 Nethers, are merely pawns used by the Venerable One to probe the Nirvana realm. When Yi Ching Luo heard that, her eyelashes fluttered a few times. Even though she and Wu Nether had never had a proper duel, Wu Nether and Wu Nether had never had a proper duel. But Yi Ching Luo was certain that their 5 Nether's abilities were all above sky profound grade. He could feel it from the few times she fought with Yu Ji. And these 5 people could only be regarded as abandoned pawns. How many capable people were behind this so-called Venerable One? Chapter 2900. Logically speaking, except for the dark forces that were outside of the upper realm, only the real forces that were above the Nirvana realm would think of invading the Nirvana realm. But, from the attitude of Yu Ji and Yuan, this revered one was definitely from the forces of the upper realm. How could the people of the upper realm possibly take a fancy to such a lowly realm like the Nirvana realm? And for this, he didn't hesitate to design so many shows. Yi Ching Luo took Yu Ming, Yu Nu, Yu Han, and also Godless Island, Shi Shanglan. All these things were linked together. The more he thought about it, the more he felt a chill run down his spine. She suddenly raised her head and stared at Yuan without blinking. Does your Venerable One know me? Is his target in the Nirvana realm me? Yuan was flustered by Yi Ching Luo's gaze. He took a few steps back and shook his head. The Venerable One's thoughts are not something that people like us, who have been abandoned, can guess. I only know that the missions that the Venerable One gave us were all different. Later on, it seemed like one of us left the mission and disappeared. Even the Venerable One couldn't find him. Because all the missions had been disrupted, the Venerable One had to rearrange them. Yu Ji and I were arranged to come to the North Wave continent and join the Dark Nether Palace. I wasn't clear about Secluded Solitude's mission and I didn't try to understand it. The mission that the Venerable One gave me was to collect the perfect toys in the Northern Wave continent and use the corpse controlling art to create more puppets for the Palace of Darkness to use. Join the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Yi Ching Luo caught onto this crucial point. In other words, the Palace of Darkness was actually not built by that Venerable. Instead, he would join the Palace of Darkness as a helper and help the Palace of Darkness. In that case, what was the relationship between the Venerable One and the dark forces? Yi Ching Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she thought of another more important question. How many puppets have you created for the Palace of Seclusion? She had personally seen those puppets. He knew very well how powerful those puppets were. Unafraid of death, unafraid of pain. It couldn't be killed, nor could it be stopped. If the Palace of Gloomy Darkness used these undead puppets to attack the Imperial Palace, The imperial palace must have suffered heavy losses. Before this, the venom in Dmo Xian's body had not been detoxified. The imperial palace might really face the fate of being destroyed. Thinking in this way, the expression on Yiqing Luo's face became even more grave. About 3,000, more than 3,000 puppets. When Yuan mentioned this figure, he took a glance at Yiqing Luo apprehensively. On seeing Yiqing Luo's darkened expression, Yuan immediately explained, that is the revered one's request. I can only comply. Furthermore, the venerable one's skill in controlling corpses is actually above mine. Now that I've betrayed the venerable one and submitted to you, the venerable one will definitely choose a new profound practitioner with strong mental power to learn the corpse controlling art. As long as I have sufficient spiritual energy, I should be able to start forging puppets within a few months. Now whether he could continue living in human form or not, he had to depend on Yiqing Luo. Yuan was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be unhappy. She refused to help him fulfill his wish. The more Yiqing Luo heard, the uglier her expression became. Her slender jade-like hands under her sleeves clenched tightly one by one. His fingertips turned white. There were already more than 3,000 puppets. In other words, it meant that at least 3,000 plus profounders with high strengths had died in the Nirvana realm. But the venerable one did not seem to intend to give up just like that. Chapter 2901. That venerable. What motive did he have? Why did he need to create so many undead puppets? Adding on to the dark forces, they were also involved. Could it be? Was Palace of Darkness intending to make use of the undead puppets to invade Nirvana realm? Yiqing Luo's brows were tightly knitted as she pondered deeply. Suddenly, a warm and big palm held her hand. His slender fingers deftly separated her tightly clenched and pale hands. The broad palm smoothed over her little hand. Following that, the arm which was placed horizontally on her waist, slightly exerted force. Yiqing Luo's petite body fell backwards. She fell into that broad chest. A warm kiss landed on her forehead. Gentle, with an elegant sandalwood scent. Yiqing Luo's heart instantly calmed down. No matter what Palace of Darkness wants to do, with me around, there's no need for you to worry. The man's mellow voice rang beside her ear. His voice was very soft and indifferent. Listening to it, it sounded as though he was despising Yiqing Luo for being a busybody. But Yiqing Luo could hear the man's worry for her in his words. Somewhere in her heart, there was some warmth, as it melted. Her brows were tainted with a hint of smile. Raising her eyes, she looked deeply into Dmo Xian's cold and indifferent peach blossom eyes. As a smile flashed past her eyes, Amen, I believe you. This man, under the instructions of the centrifugal worm. Under the circumstances where he forgot her as a person. He was still so concerned about her. He couldn't bear for her to hurt himself. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, leaning on his shoulder, as she gave a low laugh. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, looking at the young lady who was lying obediently in his arms. Her face was filled with an elegant smile, the corners of his lips unknowingly curled into an extremely shallow arc. This smile fell into Yuan's eyes. This made Yuan even more certain that his choice was not wrong. Look at the degree of pampering the overlord towards Yiqing Luo. The overlord, for Yiqing Luo, would absolutely help him to regain his human form. Let him once again become a real human. Mistress of the Imperial Palace, even if the Venerable One really finds someone to replace me and make puppets, it will take at least 5 months. Within these 5 months, with my help, we will definitely be able to make more puppets. Nethery smiled in an extremely flattering manner. He crossed his withered hands and said, As long as the mistress of the Imperial Palace helps me recover my human form, I can start immediately. Try to create more puppets than the Palace of Darkness before the Palace of Darkness finds someone to replace me. At that time, the Palace of Darkness won't be able to use these puppets as their trump cards. Yuan was filled with excitement. He believed that he had the ability to control corpses. This was the crux of why Yiqing Luo wanted him to stay. Therefore, he didn't realize that after he made this suggestion, Li Tianlan's expression changed. Yiqing Luo's eyes, which were buried in Dmo Xian's arms, were slightly suffused with a biting cold intent. But very soon, that chilly intent was well concealed by Yiqing Luo. When Yiqing Luo raised her eyes again, a calm smile surfaced on that alluring face. This is a good idea. The Palace of Darkness has corpses, and if our Imperial Palace also has them, then the Palace of Darkness won't be able to gain any advantage. As she was saying that, she used an approving gaze towards Yuan, but since we want to deal with the Palace of Darkness, then this kind of corpse puppets, other than cutting off the source controlling them, what other way is there to deal with them? This question made Yuan smile freeze. He lowered his head, as though he was unable to answer this question. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.